Welcome back to another amazing show. My name is Greg McDaniel, and this is Real Estate Coach Uncensored.
And I'm Bernice Ross, and we have a really important topic today. It's called Relief for Mom and Pop Real Estate Investors Equals Opportunity for You. On August 26, 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the CDC's eviction moratorium. And what's incredibly frustrating about what's going on right now is something that is a problem for both tenants and for owners. There has been $46.55 billion federal dollars allocated to help for rental assistance for tenants and landlords. In fact, these bills that have been passed encourage tenants and landlords to work together. In fact, some of them require it. The problem is, Greg, is that only 11% of this money has been distributed. So there is a tremendous opportunity for you as a realtor to help landlords and tenants get together, find assistance either at the federal, local, or state level, because there are a lot of programs across the board in various states. We're going to talk about how you can do that, including 7 ways that you can improve your business. The situation right now, Greg, with what's going on, 17%, 1 out of 6 of renters nationally are behind on their rent. And the estimates about what is owed is between $20 and $30 billion.
You know what, Bernice, the flip side of the coin that we really don't talk about is that the fact our hearts go out to all the renters out there who may or may not be able to make the rent payments right now. But 22.1 million rental properties are owned by mom and pop investors. And these folks, the wonderful human beings that they are, they depend on that rental income to cover the basic household expenses.
Greg, there's a report from the Brookings Institute, and approximately 40% of the residential property units are owned by individual investor landlords. These are the mom and pop people that buy another house. Maybe it's a second home that they rent out part of the time. And about a third of these are owned by low to moderate income households. And for those landlords who are earning less than $50,000 per year, their investments count for 20% of their total household income. So in other words, these people depend on, and many times they're living in the property, they depend on that rental income to be able to pay their house payments and stay in their home.
You know, Bernice, what this really translates into is that the mom and pop landlords, they're burning through their savings. I mean, every single day they're burning cash. They're deferring maintenance on the different properties that probably should be done, but they can't afford to do it based upon kind of the environment that we're in. And it could even mean a possible foreclosure on their investment property and even their primary residence.
Greg, that's so true, because if they're living in that investment, if it's like a fourplex and they live in one of them, I mean, they're at risk for losing it. So the good news is there is help for both tenants and landlords. The federal government, has, we mentioned this at the beginning here. There are 2 programs that the feds have passed. It's the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which is what they call ERA-1. And then the second one is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And these 2 programs provide $46.55 billion in funding for rental assistance. This can be used by tenants and landlords to cover rent, utilities, and in some cases, security deposits if the tenant has to relocate. But here are the problems as they were outlined in the press and at NAR. First of all, a lot of people have trouble filling out forms, and these forms are incredibly long. And if you don't speak English as your first language, can you imagine having to navigate through all the different forms you have to fill out? My understanding is that these things could be more complicated than a mortgage application. And then second, according to USA Today, what's happened here is that the feds had the states handle the distribution of money, but they weren't used to distributing that amount of money. The computer systems were malfunctioning. They weren't set up for it. This is preventing renters from applying. Some states are forcing tenants to do more documentation than is actually required by federal law. And also there's just a whole lot of other hurdles that this is throwing out because the states just don't have because of COVID, they're already working remotely. They don't have the bandwidth to handle this. And then there's one more problem here.
Oh, no.
You have to apply in 3-month increments. So that means you have to go through this process. You can get 3 months at a time, and you have to do more documentation with a limit of possibly 12%. Now, on the upside, if somebody goes through this, the landlord is prohibited from foreclosing if they are getting rental assistance through these programs. So, Greg, in my personal opinion, realtors are positioned to help both landlords and tenants because we have the grassroots connections in our local communities. We also understand how to navigate through forms and help people, get the help they need. Because we do this getting a transaction through and dealing with forms and getting lender approval. This is in our wheelhouse. And the wonderful thing here is that we can help both landlords and tenants. In fact, few people realize there's a provision in ERA 1 that says, but both programs actually require, these programs to get rental assistance require the landlords and the tenants to work together. They call this intentionally engaging the landlords in the process. In other words, the tenant's going to have to get the landlord to sign off on it, but the landlord can initiate the process, and that in turn can get the ball rolling. They'll have to get the tenant's signature, but that's going to be a lot easier to do generally than having it come from the tenant. So, Greg, what are some of the steps that the realtors can take to address this problem?
Bernice, one of the most important steps you can take is to let the investors in the area that you're working in know that there are relief opportunities available for both them and their tenants. And that's a really key thing for both them and their tenants, not just them. What I would do is there's a lot of programs you can go apply for that encourage the tenants and the landlords to work together and make this a workable solution for both of them.
The second thing that you need to know is that NAR has put together a comprehensive list of the status of eviction and foreclosure moratoriums in each state and territory in the U.S. And on pages 7 and 8, this is linked up in the video and in the article. You can click on your state or territory to find out what kind of aid is available at the federal level, as well as a number at the state and local levels. I checked both Texas and California, and there were local programs and there were, the federal programs were outlined there. And it also, this document that NAR put together is very comprehensive. This is something that you really want to take a look at if you're going to try to do this. It also tells people how to apply for the various types of programs. There's one other additional place that's another excellent choice. We've got this linked up, but this is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau site. This also helps people find federal rental assistance programs. So there are 2 places you can go. Now, Greg, what do they need? Now, what do realtors need to do in terms of marketing this?
Well, since the federal retail assistance programs are offered and they require landlords to work with the tenant, copy the relevant information from the CFPD and the NAR the resources that we have linked above. So here's a simple campaign that you guys can use. Goes something like this. Are your tenants behind on their rent? There is help available. Then down a little bit and it says, learn more. Contact Sally Agent at 888-555-1212. And that would be a very easy thing that you can get out there and get in front of folks that might need your assistance.
Now, the next thing that you can do, if the investor is owner occupying the property and it's 1 to 4 units, these lenders treat these the same way as single family residences. So this means if they haven't already gotten mortgage forbearance, they can apply for forbearance for up to 6 to 12 months, depending on the lender. they can apply for that. So that's another source of money that can help them get through not being able to pay their back rent. So if they can defer their payments, that helps them to pick up part of the cost.
Some of the iBuyer companies will purchase 1 to 2 unit investment properties, provided obviously they meet the criteria, right? I know Bernice, a good friend of yours, just sold a duplex of his there in Austin with Open Door, and he was very pleased with the entire experience, with the price and the simplicity of the entire process.
Yeah, this is a place where iBuyers can be a great. I was really kind of floored when I heard that they were willing to do certain investments. And I looked on the sites for a number of iBuyers in the specific circumstances, this can be a option.
Bernice, something that's really interesting that kind of comes to mind right off the bat is that the eviction moratoriums have been lifted in most areas, not all areas, but most areas. And with investors, that allows them to sell their investment properties and take that into a 1031 into another property where they can start their depreciation schedules and the whole litany of other things they can do. I've had several of my clients contact me and say, "Hey, Greg, is this a good time to sell?" And I say, "Well, what are you selling?" And they tell me that it's an income producing property, but they need to, get out of it. I said, "Yeah," and they've been extremely pleased with the outcomes that we've been able to produce for them.
Now, did you do a 1031 exchange with them or did you do an outright sale?
We did a 1031 exchange with them. I used my buddy James, who does 1031s around the country. And so it was a very easy and painless and simple process.
Well, one word of warning, if you're not familiar with the 1031 exchange provisions, make sure that you hire somebody who is.
Yes.
Take them on as a partner, because this is tricky and they get into the delayed exchanges. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So you need to have someone who knows what's going on this. Now, our final suggestion is, you may be wondering where to find these investors. It's very simple. You can go through your local title company. You can go to reisource.com. That's a CoreLogic product. They charge per name. And you can say, I want people to make $100,000, own at least $100,000, and then have 2 properties. Obviously they're not going to be occupying both of them. So one of them will be an investment property. And the other thing is, normally when you find somebody who's an investor, some of these investors have 10 or 20 properties. So you find one investor, you might find 8, 10 different properties that you can actually do something with. So Greg, to wrap up for today, what's your final takeaway?
I'd say be curious, Bernice. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and there's a lot of folks that need your assistance, your professionalism as a realtor. Go out there, start making some contacts, and just see what you can do to bring value.
Greg, for me, the bottom line is one of the best ways to serve your clients in your community is to be a solution to their problems. If you can help tenants and landlords work together, if you can help them stay in their homes and get the financial assistance they need, this is going to generate more goodwill and referrals for your business than almost anything else you can do. Thanks for being with us today. See you next time.